We got a couple of depth questions that I want to get to here. First one from Cole. Do you think TaRiq Bracy will get passed over as the second cornerback?
I can't. I have no clue, Cole. I wish I had an answer for that. I think if TaRiq Bracy shows up and is the TaRiq Bracy of old, then no, he won't get passed over. He'll play and he'll be a key part of this because Marcus Freeman likes to play a lot of man coverage. And TaRiq Bracy is probably, from what we've seen, when he's on his game, he's their best man cover defender. And we've seen him go against some really good wideouts. I remember in 2018 when they played Florida State and TaRiq got really his second most extensive action of the season besides the Pitt game when he was brilliant. And they kept going at him, and he kept blanketing the Florida State receivers. Georgia in 2019, he was excellent in that game. But then we've seen him with the downs. Virginia, he was down. And so that consistency is just going to be the key for him. But if he gets his confidence back, then no, he won't get passed over. If he's still doubting himself, then there's enough talent now at cornerback to pass him over. I mean, when you're bringing in Philip Riley and you're bringing in Ryan Barnes and JoJo Johnson and Clarence Lewis, Chance Tucker, and you've got Clarence Lewis coming back. You've got a guy like Ramon Henderson who's got a lot of tools. You got KJ Wallace who you could move back to corner. You moved him to safety last year because you needed depth at safety. The point being, there's a lot of athletes at that position. You can't afford to continue to throw a guy out there that doesn't have the confidence to thrive at the position. So I don't think he's going to get a necessarily long, go at this to improve himself. But I think if the coaches are smart, and I think Mike Mickens is really smart and a really good coach, he understands how important TaRiq Bracy can be to this defense. I think they're going to do what they need to do to try to get him there. But at the end of the day, you can't give someone confidence. They need to have it. And at the end of the day, it's going to be up to TaRiq to get it done. And if he does, he's going to be he's kind of not my pick, but my hope that when we talk at the end of the 2021 season, that he's the guy we're picking in our superlatives as the bounce back player. Because if he bounces back, it changes the defense. Completely changes the defense.
No doubt. I love TaRiq Bracy, and I realize that he's probably not on the best side of a lot of fans because of what happened towards the end of the season.
It's understandable. Not bad.
Totally get it.
I get it.
I get it. But I love that kid, man. I love what he brings to the table. And I mean, you outlined where he was good and where he was bad. I mean, we don't have to rehash that. But from a personal standpoint, I really hope he gets it together. Not only for himself, but then if he does get it together, like you said, this defense could go to a whole other level because I really do believe that he is the best cover corner on this team. And if he's good, then those other guys can marinate just a little bit longer. They don't have to have the pressure. You're not bringing in a guy who has no experience to be the number 2 corner. I mean, you're asking Clarence Lewis to be the number 1, which is what I'm assuming the Cole was figuring there.
Right.
And then you're going to have somebody with no experience whatsoever as your second corner. So if TaRiq Bracy is back to himself, you're allowing those guys to play, but not with the pressure that they would have had to play with.
Couple things about this. So number one is I've done some digging on this. Notre Dame will still be a field boundary corner situation. However, they're going to be a lot more flexible to go left, right if teams push tempo. So like against USC, they'll probably go left, right. Against teams that when they play Wake Forest, they'll be left, right. So there's going to be more flexibility there. So there still will be a field boundary component to this defense.
Right.
So that's one thing to consider and understand about what they're going to do, because that was a question mark, because you couldn't tell at Cincinnati because they play so many tempo teams. I mean, they have to go right, left almost every week because most of the teams in the AAC are push the tempo teams. So but at the heart, if they're playing base teams or teams go normal tempo, they will be left to right. So, they'll be boundary field. So that helps TaRiq too, because then Notre Dame doesn't play as many up-tempo teams as Cincinnati did. So there'll be more opportunities to kind of go field boundary, which you want TaRiq playing the field, number one, because of his cover ability. Number two is size. You don't want him playing the boundary all day long. The other part of it too, Vince, is when you watch the Alabama game and you go back and you watch, you say, boy, I wish TaRiq did not have his mental collapse, because he's the one guy athletically that can run with the Bama receivers.
Sure.
And especially like Mechie. I mean, a lot of people have a hard time running with Devontae Smith, not just because of his athleticism, but his great route running. But I'm more looking at those number 2 guys, because the thing about having a guy like TaRiq Bracy is if he's able to say, hey, if he's at his best, you say, hey, go cover that guy, and then now you can not only put your second and third, your third and fourth corners at different positions, the nickel, those other things, but even beyond that, you can now say, hey, they've got this big boundary receiver, so we're going to use our safeties to go protect Clarence in the boundary against, this big stud receiver that we're facing against. Or you can then use your safeties to move around, knowing that you have confidence that TaRiq Bracy go out and cover that guy. You don't have to protect him over top as much as you may a true freshman. But I will also say this, Vince, and we'll move on. Cornerback is one position on defense that I'm more comfortable with a freshman playing, because it is so much more about just, are you physically good enough? Do you have the confidence to go play? It's kind of like running back for me, in that it's just a position that, because you don't need to be a year in the weight room and those kind of things. You either have the physical tools to do it or you don't.
Yeah, you're right.
And however quickly you pick up the defense, you can go play. So that's why it's a position where I'm more comfortable plugging a freshman in there than I would be like Prince Collie at linebacker or Gabriel Rubio at defensive tackle, because there's more of a physicality component to those positions than there is corner. And corner isn't like safety, where you have to have so much more understanding. It's like, hey, you see that guy? Go cover him. Here's your technique. Go cover him.
It's like backyard football.
It's not that simple, but
it is.
hyperbolically, you get what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely.